pivotal step forward. That's how campaigners have described a decision to award interim compensation of £100,000 to people who received contaminated blood from NHS treatments in the 1970s and 80s. Around 3,000 people in Scotland were affected. Many of them have since died or are living with chronic illnesses. Around 550 people should receive payments from the end of October, but others will lose out at this time, as our health correspondent Lisa Summers reports.
As a boy growing up in the 1970s, Myles Hutchison was given blood contaminated with hepatitis C. He endured more than his fair share of abuse.
There was a stigma attached to it, and I used to get graffiti written on the walls where I lived with people saying I was horrible things.
His mental and physical health have had many ups and downs as he struggled with his illness. He was unable to keep his job.
I loved working, I really did. And when I had to stop working, it was so depressing and debilitating on top of what was already going on. It took away simple things in life, but it also took away stability.
Myles was treated for haemophilia at Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. 40 years on, and he's now one of around 4,000 people in the UK who receive compensation for what happened.
Money can't quantify the suffering. I know if I was paid in tears, I'd be a billionaire.
Families of those affected, some the parents of young boys who developed AIDS, and others who contracted long-term illnesses, gave evidence to the public inquiry into what happened. It started almost 4 years ago. Campaigners have always questioned what was known about the risks and to what extent it was covered up. Julia Gordon-Smith painted this to remember her father Peter.
This was the very last touch that I had with my dad.
He died just before the public inquiry began. Her family will not yet receive compensation, as children, parents and siblings are not included in the payouts. Her sisters gave up work to care for their dad.
They won't get any help at all to help them with the time that they spent looking after him. But the carers were not just spouses, and that is a fact which has still got to be really looked at.
Julia remembers Peter as a musician, a vivacious father whose life was destroyed by his illness. She says the most important outcome is answers.
People were left in poverty and degradation because nobody would take ownership of the causes of contaminated blood. And the scandal was the fact that it was so buried and people were abandoned.
Campaigners say the announcement of compensation is a first step in accepting responsibility for the biggest treatment disaster the NHS has known. Lisa Summers reporting, Scotland.